Hello, everybody, and welcome to Luxcast number 2. I'm Ark. Next to me is Travis, the second host, and then beneath me is Samir. Um, he's our special guest this time around, and we said we would alternate guests every single week, and he's our special guest. So
So since the last episode, huge news is that the official game release happened. So we now know
yeah, the
what the
kickoff.
competition is this year.
Yep,
So that's going to be
and
what we're talking about right now, I
yep,
think.
there's a lot of stuff that came out, the gameplay, the rules. We'll share our thoughts on what we think about the kickoff and the game, and we'll show off some robot ideas. And then after that, we'll talk about some driver coach relationship. I know some people are new to the season and FTC in general, so we'll talk about how driver coach, how that relationship plays out during actual matches. All right, let's start with thoughts. What are you guys' thoughts about the new game and the kickoff in general?
I like that they introduced a new score system with, depending on last year, it was more on lower points, and this year it's more about higher points.
Yeah, it's
Whenever
kind of
you
like
get,
they're alternating. Like 2 years ago it was lower points, or no, 2 years ago it was high points, and last year was low points, and this year it's high points again, right?
yeah,
Because
Yeah,
yeah,
I
they're
believe
all
so.
they're all alternating. What are your thoughts, Travis?
So I personally uh, would like to address the fact that no, this year is not a water game, despite how many people ask that. However, we did get a pretty large change to the rules in that you can now throw things without getting penalized for it.
Oh, that is a big thing,
That's
isn't it?
yeah,
you
which
can shoot things out.
Yep.
yeah, the reason that's a big thing, not necessarily because we planned on throwing a lot of things last year, but because last year our robot had when we were picking up blocks, we had a mechanism in case we didn't grab it correctly, a mechanism to release it so we could try and grab it again. And
Yeah, the
so
flywheel
many
mechanism.
times we shot that thing out too fast and they counted it as throwing it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it
don't know.
ejected way too fast.
So
Yeah.
luckily this year that's not going to be a problem.
Yes. I also have to say that this year I feel like it's a little bit easier than last year. No, I would say it's easier. I would say certain aspects of it are easier because last year it was you had to go and place it, but like throwing it, right? You can throw it from anywhere on the field if you wanted to, right?
That's
And
true,
mhm.
but I also think that might end up being more precise with the angles and everything.
Well, yeah, but you could like you no, like despite angles, right? If you're throwing from straight on, like straight on to the goal, like you can throw it from close to the goal or far from the goal, like anywhere in between. You have a large range of motion. Especially, I feel like it's going to be a good thing for especially like high ranking teams, teams that are going to score like 20 rings in a match. I feel like it's going to be a good thing for them because first of all, they get unlimited rings. So they can. I mean, it was the same last year, but you have to actually like go towards the corner of the field, right? Last year for getting the blocks. This year, you
Yeah,
can get the rings anywhere from the field because those rings roll out from the human player place, and the teams
they
can
go
can
in
shoot.
different directions.
Yeah, yeah, the teams can shoot from anywhere, anywhere behind the line, right? So I
Yes,
feel like there's going to be a lot more points scored this year compared to
that's
the other
true.
years. Yep.
A, dif- a difficulty I can see happening is with the wobble goals. Once you tap them even a little bit, they'll just keep on wobbling, which would make it hard to
uh,
pick up at one point.
yeah,
That's true.
but I think the biggest thing with the wobble goals is even though they wobble, I think a good part about it is that it won't tip over necessarily. I guess
Yeah, they
they will tip over, but it's going to be a little bit harder for them to tip over because the center of mass is always wobbling around. It's kind of like water.
Yeah,
It's like if you
sure.
like if you have a jug of water, like a really big jug of water, and you just like if you just like tap it, like it'll just wobble around. It won't actually like tip over most of the time.
True.
Yeah,
And they were showing it on the release stream, I think.
yeah,
They were showing it's not easy to tip it over until you start putting rings on it.
yeah.
So I feel like that's going to be a question of in endgame, are people going to try and stack rings onto the wobble goal, or are they going to try and just score more points by launching them across the field?
Well, you can score points. No, you can put stuff onto the wobble goal even in teleop, even before endgame. It's just
Well,
that you
that's
can't.
true. That I meant that's when the points are scored.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah. When you're bringing
it's
them
the
out, yeah.
I think the question is which should be the priority.
Yes, I
Because
would say.
I mean,
Because
we don't have any experience yet, so we can't tell which one will be easier to do. But
I
if
feel like
there's
yeah. Go ahead, Samir.
I feel like it'd be easier just to stack rings onto the wobble goal as opposed to throwing them.
Yeah, it is easier. But the biggest thing is you can get more points in endgame by tipping over all the men or the little figurines on the. I think like it's right next to the. It's in between the two goals.
the power
Power
goals,
shot.
Power shots, yes. The power shot. If you tip over all three power shots, and you also get, I think, and then if you just bring the wobble goal outside, I feel like you can get the same amount of points that way. Because it's 15 per power shot. I definitely know that bringing the wobble goal outside the field is 20 points, and then
and then
each ring on there
it's
is
5
5
for each
points.
ring.
Yeah. So that's let's say the max is 8. So 8 times 5 is 40, and then 40 plus 20 is 60 points, right?
Yes.
Well,
Hmm.
you can get 65 points by shooting all three of the power shots, and then just bring a blank power shot goal outside the field. You can get 5 more points, but that way, you know.
True.
And it's easier to shoot than actually placing them onto the wobble goal, and it's faster as well. Because you shoot them, the human player puts them back in, you shoot them again. It's just a continuous process. Especially so this year, it's especially important that we go ahead and we use wheels that are really fast, like motors that are fast, high RPM motors, because we want to be able to move around all over the field. What are your thoughts
Yeah,
on
and
that?
we'd have to move around pretty fast if we're going to keep on shooting the rings over and over again.
I
Yes.
agree, and I really think that this year the virtual component is going to be a huge thing because it's always been a team-based game, and now for certain teams who are doing the virtual version of the game, you're going to be there by yourself. So
Yeah.
I think that's going to be really
There's
interesting.
there's another thing about that is people in virtual and remote competitions, they'll be scoring less penalties. So that's actually an advantage. I don't know if they thought of anything against that for like any
Well,
advantages to do.
I feel like that is an advantage, but I also feel like there is an advantage to having a teammate so that you can work as a team. And I feel like
Yes,
Yeah,
I
that's
do
you
agree.
score more points with a teammate sometimes.
Well, yeah, I do agree with that because especially if two robots complement each other like perfectly, you can score a lot more points than you would with any other team that's not as complementary to your robot. But here's the downside to that, right? If there's a team that doesn't complement you necessarily and they just hinder you, I mean, like if their robot has certain aspects of it that are really good that your robot has exactly the same aspects as the other team's robot, um, those don't complement each other. Those are going to hinder each other during matches. So
That's true, and
that's another disadvantage.
that was always a risk you had to take was that you had to
Yes.
make sure you had at least something covered, or you had at least a little bit of everything covered in case the sort of section of the game you tried to specialize in case your teammate also chose to specialize in that, you needed some backup plan. But I
Yes.
feel
It's
like it kind of takes away the risk of do you get a teammate that complements well or doesn't complement as well when you have it just by yourself?
Hmm.
it's kind of like last year whenever we were able to stack, but we also had a rack on the side to be a push spot in case our teammate was more efficient at stacking.
Yeah.
True.
This year, I feel like especially for remote teams, I feel like there's a bigger like place for them to show off the creativity because here it's just one robot, not two, right? So they could go out, they can go ahead and like they can like I don't want to say show off, but they can like express their robot in ways that I feel like weren't really traditional in matches, say last year or 2 years ago. Um, so yeah, how about the rules? What do you guys think about the multiple ways to score points this year?
I I just still really like the idea of throwing things. I think that's really cool because I don't know, it for whatever reason it seems more fun than stacking was last year.
Yes, I would definitely say that. Yeah. The rings itself, we actually thought they were plastic at first, but they were foam, and it kind of makes sense if the robot shot out plastic
Yeah,
rings out at
That would
people on the robot.
hurt.
That would hurt a lot.
safety is definitely a priority for
Yeah.
robotics, and they take everything into account, especially when now we're allowed to throw things.
Yeah. But what do you guys think about the multiple ways to score though? Like, I know there's ways to score by just placing the rings in, and there's ways to score just by like throwing them, right? What do you guys think about that?
I feel like it's actually great because if you specialize in one way and you can't do the other way, you can just mainly focus on one way of scoring as opposed to trying to do both or the other way that you can't do.
I
Yeah, I
agree
agree
with
with
You
that.
have options.
that. I think as Samir is our head programmer for our team. What do you think about the idea that we're probably going to be using a lot more autonomous features, especially in teleop and in regular autonomous this year?
I feel like it's going to be a great thing to implement it into teleop because it'll make us more efficient when it comes to scoring because we'll have set places that the robot can automatically go to shoot or set places that it can go to grab the wobble goal for a scenario. I feel like it's going to be used a lot more, which is more than last year where it was solely almost only in autonomous where
Yeah,
it's more branching out.
especially because in autonomous we can also score points because you can score double the points if you score through the high goal in autonomous if you just shoot the rings out, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's really useful, especially for us. I know there's a program out there called Pure Pursuit, and pretty much you can use that to like make arcs around the field. It'll make it so that the robot goes to set places, like set coordinates around the field, and you can make
Yeah,
paths
I've
to it.
taken a look at some of that.
Yeah, we're working on that right now. And we've also gotten a new 3D printer, actually.
Yeah,
Travis
I'm
here is the
excited.
head
I'm
CAD.
excited about that one.
Yeah. That I think especially this year, since there's so many different ways to score, I feel like there's a bigger opportunity for CAD parts this year. What do you think,
Well,
Travis?
and additionally, I kind of think for the fact that our team is minimizing meetings to make sure that we're going to be safe and we can ensure social distancing procedures, I feel like that's going to give more opportunities to make 3D printed parts, which I'm excited to see.
Yeah, especially because 3D printing, it can be socially distanced very easily because someone can CAD it and then someone else can print it like, I don't know, like miles away from where you are. You just need a
Yeah,
file. So yeah, that's a big thing. I definitely know social distancing is going to be playing a big part through our meetings. We've gotten some news back. Uh, our team especially, we've been looking into starting meetings soon. So the builders is of course really can't do any social distancing, right? But programmers, we all have to. So there were some ideas getting thrown around. I definitely know that there's different ways for the whole team to work, even if they're not all close together. There can be parts of your team that are in a Zoom call with the builders while they're actually on the robot, and especially like programmers, they can see how the build team is doing without actually being there at the meetings because programmers can, like, I don't want to say work at home, but it's kind of like working at home. Would you
Yeah,
say? There's multiple
I
ways to socially distance.
I feel like programming would be very efficient to do over Zoom or Discord to just screen share what we're doing with each other and work on the same program at once or
Hmm.
split up work.
I feel like in some ways it's actually more efficient because usually in our in-person meetings, especially, it's kind of hectic. There's so many people around. I feel like now since we're all specializing more on the things that we like to do, without like in a space that everybody everybody's okay. Like I don't want to say okay, but like everybody's like in the same like areas. All programmers in a Zoom call. That's going to be a lot more efficient than if there's all programmers that are in-person meeting with builders yelling at you every 3 seconds to like fix this, fix that.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, so that's the stuff that's going on with us. This I know every single team is a little bit different. But this year's going to be kind of weird. So let's move on to robot ideas. What do you guys think about the robot ideas for this season?
so the initial idea I had, um, now when you say robot ideas, do you just mean like explain
In
some of the
general,
ideas we've had? Okay.
no, in general. So like, what do you
So
think? What mechanisms do you think is going to be useful this year?
I really see a lot of like potential for teams to use flywheels to launch the rings across the field.
Yeah. There's flywheels. I know that there's a lot of different strategies. People can launch stuff. They can place stuff. They can place stuff on the wobble goal or place stuff from the goal. They can specialize in just moving the wobble goals around, especially if they're in person. I feel like it's a disadvantage because if you only specialize in moving things around and your event gets canceled, you know, you're going to be at a disadvantage during remote competitions. Do you guys know how remote competitions work?
Um,
I
Not
don't necessarily know.
entirely. I know
Yeah.
the general idea is that we have a certain amount of matches that we are recording, or I don't entirely remember. I don't think
I
we're
think
actually
I
recording
think
a video, but
recording isn't required.
Yeah, it is required.
It is
And
required.
judges' presentations are recorded as well.
All
I
right.
know that for a fact. Or not recorded. I think it might be live stream, or you do it through a Zoom call, and um, and I think so. Then you use the FTC app. You guys heard about that, right? The
Yeah.
FTC app for scoring points, and you do that live as well. I know you can definitely. Yeah, you guys heard about the you can practice. So this is a big thing for this season. Your team members really need to practice with the app beforehand, and I think it's a good idea for certain team members to just specialize in the rules, so that when you're actually recording the points, those team members can judge your team fairly, and and they can also give you the amount of points that you need, or that you not need, but that you actually scored, and doing everything graciously professionally. I don't know, is that the word? Graciously professional? Graciously professionally? I don't know.
definitely make sure that people are not being unintentionally dishonest with some of their scores just by
Yeah.
knowing the rules.
I think it's evident that there's probably gonna be mistakes that happen in scores. I think everybody knows that. I mean, we're not all judges, right? But
I feel
True.
like there's gonna be a couple minutes of fudging where it's like borderline no, that point doesn't count, but we're just gonna count it anyway.
yeah, maybe if it's like really really close to being a penalty, but it's not actually a penalty. I guess in every single sport, the referees are like, oh, it's very close, but I'm not gonna count it like that. Like, not everything has a fine line, I would say, right? So
That's
Yeah,
yeah,
true.
here.
I know personally, if I were doing the score, I would make sure, even if I thought there was even any chance that anything was a penalty, I'd still count it as a penalty.
yeah. All right. How about some other robot ideas? Instead of using flywheels to throw them, what else can we use? I know there's
So
ramps and stuff you can use as well.
you could use a ramp mostly as an intake method. I don't think you could use that for an output, but or maybe you could to like angle it, but then
Hmm.
that
Yeah, I saw
also
one
probably
team
be
do
using
that.
flywheels.
Yeah. I know you can use actuators to go ahead and increase the angle or decrease the angle, especially if you're farther away or closer um, to the to the goals. You can use an actuator, linear actuator. I don't know if GoBuilder sells those. Um, And then you can also have I know that you can have a planetary gear system underneath your shooting mechanism, so you can tilt or not tilt. You can you can tilt the axis at which the rings are being shot at, like from left to right. That's also a cool thing you can use. And since the goals are different colors, I'm pretty sure you can use autonomous to sense these colors, and you can approximate how far the goals are. You can use like basic physics to pretty much estimate what angle you need to throw it at, and you already know what speed it's going to be flung at. So you just need an angle, and that angle will pretty much tell you, well, if you shoot it at this exact place, it'll go to this high goal. So that's a really big. You can use autonomous really, as a good program during
I could
IntelliApp as
see,
well.
yeah, I could see Vuforia or OpenCV being implemented into detecting the goals in the distance.
Yeah. Um, Yeah, I think there's a bunch of different ways to go ahead and incorporate programming the in different places, like tele up and autonomous. There's different ways to incorporate programming. Let's move on to so is that how about other different mechanisms for other than throwing? How about stuff for placing? How do you think people are going to do that?
Well, I think every year there's teams that use an arm for placing things,
Yeah,
which
arms have a
I
lot of
expect
they have a big degree of freedom. I think it's kind of hard to make.
it's true, but I feel like every team or a lot of teams are still going to have them implemented in some way. Um, but I also feel like their use is a lot more limited this year, so I don't know if I really expect to see as many of those.
Yeah, their use would mostly be to. I mean, I don't know because you can use the arm to put the rings on the wobble goal and to put rings in the goal. Um, I guess people can do that, but I feel like it wouldn't be the best way to score as many points as possible. And because placing rings takes more time than throwing them. Do you guys agree with me on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially because you have to actually go first. You got to move to the place you need to place the ring at. Then you need to bring your arm up and then place it, and then you got to actually move back and get another ring. When you're throwing, all you got to do is you got to grab it and go behind the line and just shoot it. And going behind the line takes less time than going to the goal. So that's a big thing. Any other mechanisms you think might be useful this season?
So initially when the season started, I had a few sort of wacky ideas. I don't necessarily think these are the best ideas, but I had the idea of making like a clay pigeon machine, basically, kind of like
Frisbee machine, right?
kind of like a frisbee launcher. Um, I don't know if that's the most effective idea. I don't, because the thing I was basing it off of, a clay pigeon launcher uses a spring most of the time, so I don't think spring powered stuff is a good idea in robotics,
Yeah,
just
we
because
used a
they're a little too
spring.
explosive.
Yeah, we used a spring 2 years ago. I forgot the name of the season. It was the one
Velocity
where
vortex.
No,
no, it was after
that
that
was
one.
Rover Ruckus, wasn't
Rover
it?
Ruckus,
But
yes, we
Ah,
used it.
that was for lifting our robot off the
Yeah.
ground, and it was
hmm That one, the spring that we used, we had to replace I would say like 2 or 3, no, probably like 5 minutes. Every 5 times we used it, we would have to replace it because it would always deform.
yeah,
That's one big thing about
oh, that
springs.
sounds very ineffective.
and
No, it was a good mechanism to lift the robot up, but
it
the
worked
power,
well.
yeah, it worked, but the power of the motors uh, kind of destroyed the springs, and it also destroyed the motors too.
Okay.
There were definitely we were really scared 2 years ago about using rack and pinions, but I feel like rack and pinions would have been a good way to lift the robot up, because rack and pinion there's a long story behind that, but we might say it another day. But yeah, we used springs, and the moral story is springs aren't effective for high intensity tasks.
Yeah, and I think the worst part was that it was in a really inconvenient place for having to replace it
Oh
often.
yeah, I remember that. That was pretty
Because
bad.
you had to like move a lot of stuff off the robot to reach it because it was
Yeah.
right in the middle.
That hurt my fingers so much when I when I had to try to replace it. But yeah, that's a big thing. Um, yeah, so I guess springs. So we talked about the claymore. That was pretty much like how you use a frisbee and you like throw it using your arm. You know how you throw it with only one arm. That was kind of like the clay pigeon idea.
Yeah, kind of just a rotational motion. I don't know if that's the best idea because I don't.
It could definitely get a design award though if someone implements that.
It
It's probably
would.
possible.
I just don't know exactly how you would effectively make sure you're releasing it at the same point in the throw each
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
I think
It
that
would
would be
probably
really
require
difficult to
some.
implement.
Yeah, it would require quite a bit of engineering. There's different, and we say that flywheels are the best way to use, or the best thing to use to launch the rings. But really, the flywheels you can use them in multiple different ways. You can move the ramp up to the flywheels, and the flywheels then shoot it, or you can just have the flywheels just there, stationary, and then shoots it. You can have, there's different ways to use flywheels. You can use it vertically, you can use it horizontally. Yeah, there's so many different ways to use flywheels. I think the season is going to be pretty. I feel like a lot of teams are going to use flywheels. In that way, it's not really that creative. But the ways that teams use flywheels will be creative. That's what I think. Yeah. So let's move on to driver and coach relationship. How do you think that will play out this season?
What I'm really interested to see is how you can do a 2-driver and 1-coach team while being socially distant. Is it going to be made sure that people are 6 feet apart with that? Because the field isn't.
One person could be on the other side of the field. Another person could be at the close to the human. Wait, no, there's the human player also. Yeah, I don't really know how they do.
Well, human players are away from the players in the first place because they're on the other side of the field.
Well, I was talking about mostly for our meetings, wherever we decide to do them.
Yeah.
We're going to be 6 feet apart is our plan. And
yeah,
so
we are. I think that's going to be really hard for builders, especially when for builders, especially when you're trying to work on the same part that requires 2 or 3 people to like hold it and screw it, and especially like screwing it in and holding it in with a wrench. Like usually in tight spaces, you can't do it without 2 people. So I think eventually, I don't want to say we're not going to social distance, but I feel like in some cases we're probably going to have to get closer than social distancing guidelines to fit.
It would probably have to be a short amount of time that the social distance is not maintained.
Yeah. But yeah, we will actively, I think all teams should actively try to maintain social distancing. But I guess if there's like a certain thing that you can't do without being social distancing, I guess you can do it without social distancing, but make sure you wear a face mask. And make sure that you're not even at the meeting if you're coughing or being sick at all, right? Don't even show up, because there's always Zoom meetings. There's always different ways you can participate.
And also if you may be a carrier or have been exposed to someone who has been recently sick.
But back to driver-coach relationships, though, I would say I know this year I don't really know if two drivers are necessary. I've seen teams that are successful with only one, because literally all it is you pick up, especially if you're using flywheels, right? You just pick up the rings, right? That's one button. Then you shoot them. That's another button. So that's 2 buttons, right? And then you use joysticks for moving and swerving around. And then you can use some like 2 other buttons for like autonomous integrated teleop, right? Like getting to a certain position on the field each time. That's just like 1 button, and they shoot. Yeah, I think you can probably manage with 1 remote or one controller, but I guess if you have 2 controllers, yeah, I don't know how that's going to work out, actually.
Especially for people who are doing it like at home.
Oh,
you only have half the field, really.
Yeah. Speaking of fields, we're also looking into the remote field and buying the field, right? You can buy the full field, or you can make it at home. We've been talking about that too. What do you guys think about the make it home field?
I think our team was planning to do the make it home field.
It's just how we're going to build it.
Well, that is a fair question, because
where are we going to store it? Where are we going to store it? And we still don't know a certain place, or we don't know exactly what place we're going to be holding our meetings at. We might end up doing all meetings at school, but that's kind of hindering because it's like, other teams need to use the same space as us. So we're only going to have like 1 day a week or something to actually use the school. So the best plan of action would be probably to do meetings outside of school, but we just don't know where.
That's true. And that's a huge issue that every team has to overcome, is how they're going to figure out how to properly plan meetings while still prioritizing safety.
Mm-hmm. Some other stuff we're doing a bunch of outreach. This is one of our outreach, I guess. We're doing and we're also doing the newsletter. We'll talk more about that at the end. We're doing some tutoring. I know Samir's in the tutoring program that we run, right, Samir?
Yep.
Yep. I think he had to tutor someone today, or
Yeah,
he's going to tutor
tutoring.
someone today.
Yeah, today at 7.
Today, so yeah. So we're doing a bunch of tutoring. We're also doing a tax stem, which is a different website. We're doing there's a bunch of stuff. I feel like this season is a great place or a great time to go ahead and start outreach more, because I think outreach is going to be more heavily played this time around compared to other seasons, because
Yeah.
a lot of teams aren't going to be having the best robots that they can build due to time constraints. So I feel like outreach is definitely going to be a key factor.
Well, I feel like it kind of has like a good story to it, that a team's like unable to do things in person for a long time, so they decide, well, here's how we could continue our outreach virtually, or here's how we could expand our outreach.
Yeah.
So that whenever the quarantines ended, they were able to continue that and also see what they could return to out of their regular outreach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff going on. Any other thoughts, guys?
Uh, about what exactly? Just
About like just the season in general.
uh, I really am still excited to have more 3D printed parts.
Yeah. I know last year and 2 years ago we didn't really incorporate Travis into the robot.
The issue was because we didn't have our own printer. We were using our school's printer, and since we were a club, we got lower priority than the students that were actually using it for their classes.
This year in school, our one of the guys that run 3D printers for us, he got 11 3D printers in. You hear about that, Travis?
Yeah, that too.
Wow, that's a lot.
That is a lot. I know the Rockets team that I'm in is also planning on using those 3D printers a ton. I guess that's a good thing about this this year. We have so many 3D printers. But the 3D printer we have is especially good because it's giant. I think it's 0.4 by 0.4 by 0.4, something like that, meters long, tall, and wide. So that's pretty big if you think about it. It's almost half a meter each.
We could potentially CAD the entire robot.
Not the entire robot.
Well,
so you could CAD most of the robot technically. I guess.
Yeah, we have the ability to, but we wouldn't probably do it.
I feel like
we're definitely not going to be doing that.
Yeah, that's a lot of filament you'd have to use, and that's kind of expensive.
I think
that's true.
We could definitely integrate. I feel like this year we should definitely integrate walls that are 3D printed, because first of all, walls that are 3D printed, we can make them thinner and lighter than the walls that you can buy off that are metal. And then the second thing is you can curve them in any shape in any shape that you want, and you can make them fit anywhere you want on the robot. And you can also make them so that the screw holes are exactly where you need them to be. Right? So I feel like walls are going to be really necessary this season, I guess, because you're moving around a ton, right? You're bumping into walls. You're bumping into the wobble goal and stuff. I feel like walls that are really thin and 3D printed are a big thing this season.
Are we gonna continue with the electrical tape all over the robot?
No, I don't know about that.
Hopefully, if we have a lot more 3D printed parts, we won't have so much metal on the robot.
Yeah.
That we need to do that.
And also,
that was something we did last year to minimize our static, because we kept getting issues where the static just kept shutting the robot off.
Yeah.
So I would definitely say we can work around that this year.
Mm-hmm. And I definitely know there's the control hubs that are coming out. I think they're already out. They're really expensive. We didn't get them yet. We might get them later, maybe. But it's kind of hard. Maybe from the Bayer grant. We were filling out the Bayer grant. That's when does that due? Oh shoot, I think it's due tomorrow.
Soon.
I think it's due tomorrow.
Soon. I'm pretty sure it is.
Maybe I'm gonna text Nathan after this and make sure it's done. But the Bayer grant. if you get the Braingram, you might get those too, and then that'll make our lives so much easier because the phones disconnect all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right, let's. I guess we can conclude it here. We talk about the conclusion of plugins, right?
Yeah.
All right,
So
go ahead, Travis.
yeah, if you're listening to this, then I assume that all our links to our social medias are going to be in the description of the video.
Yep.
So go subscribe to those and subscribe to the channel because it supports us. I don't really know how all of this works, but if it's good for us, I'll take it.
Yes.
Make sure you look for the newsletter.
It's on our
that-
website. We'll
yes.
put the website link in there too. Yeah, so you guys can look at the newsletter up on our website. We just uploaded it. I think we either just uploaded it or we're going to upload it very, very soon. We just finished
I
up
think
this.
it's being soon.
Yeah, very,
soon.
very soon.
And just to make sure people know, the podcast and the newsletter are not the exact same content. So if you think
Yes.
that you can get the same experience with just one of them, don't. You're gonna miss out.
Yep.
They're completely different.
We have a bunch of different articles on the newsletter. We have women in engineering. We have just interviews with people. We talk more in depth with the point scores and the field in general. We talk about first updates, and we talk about a bunch of stuff. There's also a fun little activity on the back, word search, or what was it?
Last time it was a word search, but this time it's going to be a crossword puzzle.
Yes, crossword puzzle. We spent a lot of time on all of these stuff. We'd appreciate if you look at them. Also, if there are any other teams who are watching this right now who want to be part of the podcast, it could be great outreach for us and you. Please reach out to us. We'll contact, especially on our Instagram. You can reach out to us on Instagram. I think we'll put our Instagram ID up on the description as well. And yeah. So yeah, if you just reach out to us and then we'll respond to you. I think that's it, right? Anything
Yep.
else? All right then.
I
Sounds
believe
good.
that's it. Signing off.
Yes, signing off.